This is the beginning stages of body wash. There's coconut oil, olive oil, potassium hydroxide, which is actual like potash that makes the consistency of it's like clear water, but it's hot, and it's like the opposite of sodium hydroxide. And you blend it together. I should have said it from the very beginning, but it's just me adding I heated the oils, and then I just added the potash. And so now I'm going to blend it, and you blend it until it gets a nice little full consistency, so you don't have the oil and the water and potash kind of like loose. You want to have it blended. So I'm going to blend it for a minute, and I'll come back and show you I guess I'll just show you the ins and outs of each stage instead of having the camera running consistently. So I'll be back. Once you get it blended well, just stir it like every 10 minutes or so. I always put my crock pot on high because this crock pot gets hot fast, and it actually cooks the liquid soap faster. It normally takes, on the old crock pot that I used to have on high, it took me half a day almost to make this stuff. It usually takes about 2 days. But with this crock pot, once it starts to boil, it's going to go through a couple of phases. This phase is a liquid phase. It's going to start to heat, and once it superheats, it's going to start to thicken. Once it starts to thicken, then it's going to start to change color. On the second phase, it's going to become clear. Once it becomes clear enough, then you're going to add water and cover it back up. Once you add water and start to, mix it up so it can loosen up, then you're going to have you're going to be back to a liquid phase, but it's going to be clear. And once it gets to that point, it'll be ready, but that's when I add other stuff that I add in it to make my consistency for my detox and things like that. So I'm not going to tell you that part, but it's my little secret. But this is the process that you go through. So again, once you add your potassium hydroxide to your water, and you take your oils and you put them in the pot, let it get hot, stick blend it till you get this consistency. This consistency, depending on your crock pot, will stay this way until it gets super heated. See, it's starting to get a little thick right now. You can't really tell, but it's thicker than what it was before. So it's going to get thicker, and this will burn you just like soap will, so you have to be careful. So put the top back on it. I'll come back in about 10 more minutes. Well, I'm actually on the other side making more soap, but I'll come back and stir it again, and this time I'm going to just come back at the different phases and show you. So when I come back this time, it'll be almost like a, not really mashed potato, but past that part of like being, I say, dry mashed potatoes. So you'll see it in a second. So this is where it starts to boil and it's starting to thicken. It looks like it's coming apart, but just, like it's separating basically, but it's not. And just stir it because it's boiling and it's getting thicker. It's like I said, mashed potato consistency, and it's getting thicker. So just keep stirring it. Excuse me, I'm going to cold up the. But you'll keep stirring it to mix it back together, which is not an issue. You have your bubbles. Don't worry about the bubbles. You just keep stirring it. Like I said, it gets thicker. And I'll probably stir it for like another minute. Just to make sure that the consistency, it doesn't separate. Will keep separating, which now I know it's not because of the way I keep stirring it. See, hope I don't drop it in here. Even if you do see it where it looks like it's starting to separate still, it's still fine. But just stir it up enough, because the more you stir it, the thicker it's going to get. And it's going to get so thick to where it's going to take you holding your pot in order to flip it. That's all you're going to be able to do on the next stage, is just literally take it and flip it. Take it and flip it. And I don't mean like this. It's going to be like big chunks. It's going to be together, so you're going to have to flip it. So you'll see in the next phase Like I said, right now it's thicker, like a mashed potato consistency. And I'll be back to show you the next phase, which is like a super thick consistency. And then it'll start turning into what you know, which will be like a clear state. And that's where you'll start to add water. So I'll be back. This is part of the next phase. See, it's a lot thicker, even more mashed potato-ish. Once it finishes dissolving the water and mixing in the oils and the it's starting to fog up. Mixing up the oils and the potassium hydroxide. When I was talking about flipping earlier, you're literally going to be taking a whole section and flipping it because it's going to be so tough to stir. You won't be able to stir it, to be honest. So this is next to the stage of, next to the 2 stages till it'll be clear. So like I said, in this case, every 10 minutes or so, come and stir it. When we come back, then the next stage would literally be the stage I was talking about of you having to flip it, because it's going to be really, really thick. Okay, I had to show you guys this. See how hot it has risen to the top and how thick it's getting. So I can stir it, but it's getting a little too thick. So I'm going to have to put the camera down and the phone down and stir it and hold it before I make a mess. But this is the thickness I was talking about. It's going to get a little thicker than this. This is another phase. It's going to get a little thicker. And when it gets thicker, the best you can do is just, because it's drying out. If you can see that. So it's happening as the water evaporates from it. And the consistency stays thick. That's what you want, because as it dries out, that's when the color is going to start to change from this yellowish goo to almost a clear. So see how hard it's getting to stir it. So all you can do is flip from the outside in, press down, flip. And that's all you can do for now. Just do that. Try to mix it well. And you really at this point don't have to keep your eye on it every 10 minutes, because there's no water vapor, there's no water in it. And with water in it, of course, like you saw, then it rises to the top. And if you're not careful in stirring it, it kind of boils over. So once you get to this point, you don't have to consistently keep your eye on it through the top. You can kind of like let it do what it does, which is get the rest of the water out. Once it gets the rest of the water out, then that's when you want to, when I come back, I'll show you what it's going to look like. And then at that point, you're going to add water. But like I said, if you have something to do, go do it. Don't leave the house with this on, but just, you know, you can let it sit for like 15, 20 minutes and let it get as clear as possible before you add water. So again, this is the consistency of liquid soap. So from here, I'll come back and show you the next step. And this is what it looks like in the next stage. It looks yellow, but a little clear. It's still thick. It recreated a little bit of water from the top. Y'all want to keep the top on it. The top kind of helps put water in when needed. So now, the way you're looking at it, it makes it, I really can't explain okay, you can kind of see it there. It's starting to change color from the creamy look it was, and it's starting to become clear. This takes about another hour for all of it to become completely clear. You want it, you can add water now, but I don't. I mean, because it'll still make the liquid soap with no problem. But I noticed that I get the consistency I want with the liquid soap when I let this get as clear as it can get. So, like I said, you can let this sit and cook with the top on it for like forever and just let it all get completely clear. But you still want to stir it so you can have the heat evenly move across the whole thing. But, yeah. this is the consistency you're looking for when you rub it. It kind of goes a little not clear, but for the most part it's getting clear. Just leave it like that, put the top on it, and let it cook more. Make sure you add the top of each phase, because it helps with the evenness of the heat. But like I said, keep that on there, and I'll be back to show you when I add the water. This is the consistency that you want. It's kind of clear. It really is clear, but it has a yellow hue to it. Oh, yeah, kind of a yellowish greenish hue. But this is the consistency you want to show that before you start to add your water, because this is the last stage. It's going to stay this way. When you put the top back on, it's going to have water on it. That's fine. But this is the consistency again, and the look that you want to show that you're in the final stage of soap making when it comes to the liquid soap. And then from here, you're going to add your water. And as you add your water, I'll put it this way, I'm going to give mine about 15 more minutes. Then I'll come back and do another video or a quick little snippet and add the water and show you guys the whole cycle of making the soap. So I'll be back. So here we are with how I like to add my water. It has to look like this when I add my water, because I know all of it has been processed. It's clear, but it has this yellowish hue to it. So I add my water, which is, I do 8 cups. When I first did this recipe, I used to do 10, but I wanted the consistency to kind of thin out more, but not too much more where it's watery. So once you do it like this and you add your water, you just kind of take it and kind of break it up a little bit. Still keep it on high, but kind of break it up a little bit. And like I said, this process, if it wasn't for this specific, darn it, if it wasn't for this cooker, I'd still be working on this by the end of the night. So this kind of cuts the time because it's a lot faster. It cooks faster for some reason. I gotta excuse the back here. It splashes. I clean it, it splashes. I clean it, it splashes. So it is what it is. Anyway, so I just press it down a little bit, and as it starts to boil, it's gonna start to thin and dissolve into the water. So let me get this off my spoon, but I'll come back and show you the end results where it's boiling. Then I'm gonna add what I add to it, and then, you know, of course you add your own items, but I add what I add to it, and then I'm gonna make more batches after that, because it's holiday season coming up, so I'm gonna need a lot more. So I'll be back. Okay, so this is, let me turn my phone before I drop it. This is the almost end result of my soap. It's been a all-day process, because that's what happens. Like I said, if it wasn't for this crock pot, then it would be actually 2 whole days, but I'm still not done. So as you can see, I still have small pieces left. And what I do with these pieces, I take them and I press them up against the wall. And what I did, I made the mistake of getting sidetracked with something else. And as you can see, the lining here, I wound up having a spillage because my crock pot gets so hot. So you still have to kind of watch it if you have it on high, but if you have it on low, you can let it cook all day by itself and just still kind of come in every once in a while and, you know, thin out the little extra pieces. Now, once majority of it has been dissolved like this, you can go ahead and let it cool, and once it cools, then put it in your container. Because what I do is I'll let it cool, I'll put the top on it. A lot of times when I do that, the pieces that are left over, they'll go ahead and dissolve while they're sitting, and it helps it to start to thicken, because I always use a special, let me put it this way, if you want to keep it runny this way, that's fine. It takes a long time, as in like weeks, sometimes a month, for it to get a little thicker. But in order to thicken it, you can use salt. I use a specific salt that's good for the body. Not Epsom salt, because Epsom salt will turn this creamy. So if you're trying to make a creamy soap, this is a good way of doing it. You can use this. You can make this soap, but then you can turn around and add Epsom salt. Epsom salt automatically thickens it. So if you, like I said, making a creamy soap, this is a good way to go. Or you can take your bar soaps, grind them down, add a little water in them, you know, still keep diluting it, and that's a good way to make it too. But with soap you haven't sold. But in this case, I use other salts, mineral salts, in order to help dilute the pieces, well, decrease the pieces and thicken it as it sits. So I'm gonna let it sit for another hour, and right now it's like 9 o'clock, and I started at like 11, I think it was 10 or 11, something like that. So my total processing cooking time is pretty much all day, on and off. That's why I said this, you have to love to do stuff like this, because if you don't, then you'll quit easily. I don't like to quit stuff because I love stuff like this. So like I said, I'll be back to finish the process on this once it cools in the morning. And then I'll put it in my container, let it sit for about a week, let it thicken up. Then I'll finish my process in making my detox body wash and facial wash. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, like, you can add your fragrances at this point. However you want to do it, once it cools down, do whatever you want to do with it. But that's the way that I make my soap. And of course, when I finish, I got to clean all this up, because this is what happens, and that's how your wall gets that way. It's because of the backsplash of that. So, yeah, it is what it is, but I love making soap. So, you know, hope you enjoyed it. If you got any comments or anything, drop them below. Okay, this is my empty bucket that I'm about to add my Castile soap